welcome back to another video on Viking Voice. My name is Voiseau and I help artists and creatives express themselves authentically and without fear, or at least that's what I try to do. So in this video, I'm going to talk about having a shadow side. Now, what is a shadow side? So, according to Dr. David Hawkins, is an author I've been reading at the moment, absolutely Illumination Nation. It's been amazing listening to him talk. A very self-aware, enlightened individual who in his former years was a psychotherapist, worked with a lot of people, and through his own life experiences actually transcended levels of consciousness to the highest states you can actually imagine. And in his books he talks about that and what it is like experiencing life with those higher states of consciousness. It is incredible. Now, what he talks about, before I get onto that, in my last video I talked about pathways to happiness, and happiness being tied into intrinsic goals, and not relying on external sources of happiness to make us happy and fulfilled, because external sources of happiness always pass. They are a lot of the time illusion, delusion, glamour, what the world believes us to think we should have, and then when we get it, we're completely unfulfilled, so we search for the next thing, and thus we're caught in this continuous, endless cycle of delusion. So staying happy is actually committing ourselves to a goal, fulfilling that goal, because it brings us intrinsic worth. It expands us as a human being, and that actually in turn helps us stay committed. Because if we don't get what we want on the outside, a lot of the times we just give up and we say, oh, woe is me, and life's too hard, and let's not bother. So having said that, and having that in mind, he also talks about the shadow side. The shadow side is intrinsically linked with our ego, which is basically our key to survival. It keeps us trapped in the lower states of consciousness. Fear, apathy, desire, anger, resentment, jealousy, all these things that we've all experienced, and just, you know, once we're in it, we feel completely trapped by it. Pride is another one. And in his books, he explains the pathways up these levels of consciousness and how to transcend them. It's a really interesting read. If you're interested on the subject, I would absolutely highly recommend it. He had a whole subject on fear as well, and how fear is often accompanied, not often, always accompanied with guilt, which to me was just like mind-blowing to hear. So the shadow side is linked to those lower states of consciousness, because those lower states of consciousness are linked to our survival, basically getting what we need and hoarding what we need to survive, because ultimately, the ego has a fear of death. And if we don't get these things that we need to survive, and to stab other people in the back, and to do everything that we need to do to have survival of the fittest, that's not English, but I think you get what I mean. To be the strongest, to be the fittest, to be the most good looking, to be the most magnanimous in the room, to all of these things are about how we look and how we present ourselves to the world, because we fear that if we don't have it, if we don't have the car, if we don't have the house, if we don't have the $50 steak or lobster on the table, that other people are going to see us as unsuccessful. And that is just our ego saying that we need those things to survive and to function in society. Well, guess what, guys? Apparently it is all crap. And they are linked to a shadow side and the collective unconsciousness. The shadow side is the collective unconsciousness. It's the consciousness of all human beings that secretly believes that we are all ugly, that we are all stupid, that we are all afraid of death, which a lot of us are, most of us are, okay? So we do these things we need to do to survive. Now, the pesky thing about this is our shadow side It's crude, it's rude, it's the side of us that when we get, curtailed on the motorway, wants to like kill the other person and run them off the road, and like it's really angry. It's like it has no shame in admitting that it wants to kill someone else, or says like murder the bum, or get rid of him, or whatever it is. It's just really like angry and narky, but a lot of us are ashamed to have this side of us, so we keep it hidden. You think about like the prettiest, oh my goodness, fragile flower that you can think of. They are probably the ones that have the most anger and have suppressed it for so long that it's become unconscious. And when it starts to arise, like, oh no, 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 I'm not going to look at it. No, 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 that's not, where if it were allowed to come out, they would probably be the first one to get a knife and stab someone. Do you know what I mean, right? So it is acknowledging the shadow side that we have. We all have it. And it is the shadow side that tells us, like I said, in the collective unconsciousness, that we're not good enough, that we're not worthy enough, and keeps us trapped in guilt and fear. Once we actually, I would recommend this, just sit with yourself and listen to the parts of you that come out sporadically, like when someone makes you angry, or you see something on television or the news, or some politician said this or that, and out comes this nasty side of you. I want you to sit and acknowledge that. And if you can, with a sense of humor, because it's actually often quite funny what we think when it comes out. And you think, oh my God, I didn't think that I could be capable of murdering someone or pushing someone off a cliff, but apparently my lower self can, my shadow side can. Sit with the shadow side and don't be afraid to look at it. Don't be afraid to let it come up. Why are we doing this? We have to acknowledge that we have a shadow side, because if we keep suppressing it and we keep repressing it, often what it comes out by projection onto other people. Because we are so unwilling to look at ourselves, we look at other people and we say, they're the problem, they're at fault, it's because he cut me off the road that he should die, or it's the welfare's problem, or the government's problem, or it's them, or it's COVID, that's why I'm stuck here angry and unemployed. It's always, but how many times have we actually turned the gaze inward and recognize that we are responsible for our own feelings, right? That it's our shadow side at play here. What are the advantages of letting the shadow side out? When I say letting it out, I don't mean actually acting on your impulse of pushing someone off the cliff, right? Use your common sense. It's not about acting on the impulse. That is very, very, very important. When you acknowledge the shadow side, you do not act on the impulse, because the impulse can be extremely damaging. Don't do it. All you need to do is acknowledge it. Acknowledge that it's there, because it's like when I started confronting my fear of singing, I could resist and resist and resist the fear like I had for years, and feel more and more and more angry and guilty and shameful about myself. Once I started to actually feel okay with myself, even though I had the fear, once I acknowledged and accepted the fear was in my body, that was the shadow side, and I could actually start to work through it. I could actually start to have the courage to confront it, but in safe and controlled situations and environments where I knew I would be okay, where I would be safe. So if you have, let's say, a shadow side that's very, very angry, and it often thinks like, oh, for example, I want to run that person off the cliff, or push them off a bridge, or I want them to drown, or Boris Johnson this, or Theresa May that, or whoever this, you get me. Allow it to come up and just sit with that feeling. You know what's a really good way of doing it is often spending time with your family. Sorry to say it, but I've noticed this in the people I've spent time with who have spent a lot of time with their family. There is nothing that makes us crazier than spending time with our family, because they just know how to. So luckily I don't have any brothers or sisters, luckily, unluckily, however you view it, but I am around people that are around their siblings, and a lot of the time, like, just the petty squabbles that they get each other worked up about. It's unbelievable, and it's actually so comical, but it's not funny to them because it's like, "Arr!" But they won't acknowledge in themselves their own anger and frustration. They always blame it on the other person. If you just, okay, here we are. Next time you're in a situation where you know you have the potential to get angry, for example, watching the news or the latest update on coronavirus and what the governments are doing about the vaccine or whatever or not, or next time you go for a drive and you know you're a bit prone to road rage, the next time someone cuts you off in line at the supermarket or is rude to you or doesn't say please or thank you, instead of lashing out and acting on that anger impulse, recognize it, stay present with it, and allow it to be there. Just allow it to be there, and it's going to feel awful because every part of you just, you know, but don't act on the impulse. Like I said, very, very important, because acting on the impulse, lashing out, whether it's verbally or physically, can be extremely destructive. Isn't that why they say, like, when you write an angry email or a letter, like, sleep on it, don't send it straight away? And oh my goodness, what life-saving advice, you know, the amount of careers and livelihoods that could have been destroyed because of this anger. So sit on it. And when you sat on it and you still feel this, you know, same way, okay, then maybe some of the angry feelings have dissipated and you'll change some of the wording. That is what happens when you sit with a feeling. You allow it to come up. If you repress it, if you ignore it, if you project it onto someone else, then that is not going to help. Why? Because the anger and the angry situation is just going to keep resurfacing in your life, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse and perpetuate and perpetuate. Same with fear, same with guilt, same with shame, same with desire, same with apathy, depression. You allow yourself to act on these emotions, they're just going to keep reappearing. So instead, sit with them. Now, this is part of the process of letting go. Letting go is acknowledging that you feel a certain way and not resisting the feeling. Don't label it, don't act on it, just sit with the feeling, allow it to be there. And eventually, what will start to happen is it works its way out of your system and it will pass. And that's not to say that only after one time of doing this, it's not going to happen again. Next time an angry situation happens where it makes you angry or afraid or makes you want to lash out, sit with it. Let it be there. Acknowledge it. Say to yourself, I really acknowledge that I'm feeling really angry right now. Or I really acknowledge I am afraid. I do not want to be here. I would rather run into the river than do what I'm doing now. Stand your ground and breathe. Feel it. Feel it. The more you do this, like I said, important, do not act on the impulse to lash out. It is damaging. The more you sit with this feeling, and this is the very reason the feelings are so comfortable, they're so uncomfortable that most of us don't do this, okay? This is the very reason people don't confront their fears. This is the very reason people don't confront their anger, is because sitting with the feeling and not acting out on it is like the worst, feels like the worst violation ever. But that is just your ego wanting to come up and lash out. The more you do this, the more the emotion will start to dissipate and release, so that you will not have triggers anymore. The more you put yourself, or not put yourself purposely in situations, I do that to confront my fear. I purposely go out there and put videos on YouTube. I purposely go out there and sing under a bridge because I purposely want to know what it feels like to stand in my fear and do it anyway. Okay, because I know I don't feel like murdering someone or lashing out. Okay, so that's slightly different. But in terms of anger, fear, what have you, let it come up. The more you let it come up, the more it comes out of your system. And the more it comes out of your system, in future opportunities where there would have been a scenario like someone cutting you off on the motorway or cutting you off in line at the supermarket or spending more time with your family and they're saying things to push your buttons, the more actually you don't need to react anymore because the anger's not there. The anger has been released. It's been released out of the body. The more you hold on to these feelings, coincidentally, is where it's tied to sickness and health and cancer and disease and all these things, right? What you hold inside, you draw to you. If you hold love and joy and peace and respect, you draw more of those things into your life. By letting go of anger, by letting go of fear, by letting go of betrayal, by forgiving, by doing these things, just letting the emotion stay there, it will work its way out of your system. And I know it doesn't feel like that at the time, but I promise you, the very act of doing it, don't just listen to this and don't do it, because intellectualizing something is not the same as experiencing it. Next time you are in a heavy conversation with someone and they say something that really pisses you off and you just want to, acknowledge it. Oh my goodness, feel how angry you are. Feel like, what's this feeling? Oh, is it anger? Oh, don't tell them they're wrong. Don't tell them they're stupid. Don't whip out your glove and slap them across the face. Don't act on it. Just know that this is your feeling and you are releasing it in a healthy way by just acknowledging it and sitting in its presence. Sitting in its presence will dissipate it. Right, try it. That is your shadow side, ladies and gentlemen. The shadow side that none of us, or a lot of us, don't want to look at because we are afraid of experiencing those emotions. The very fear of fear is fear itself. I'm afraid of fear because I don't want to acknowledge the fear. Once I acknowledge the fear, the very act of doing becomes easier. You don't believe me? Try it for yourself and see what happens. I'm very passionate about this. I want to know how it works for you. Good luck. All my love is with you. You can do this. Feel the feeling. Let it come up. Don't act on it. Just sit with it and let me know how you go. Shadow Side 101. We're going to get rid of this pesky ego. We're going to be free once and for all of all the base lower emotions in our life. I really believe in this. Let me know. Hopefully I'll see you in the next video and I haven't frightened most of you off. Great. Okay. Love you guys. Bye.